Useless deadweight like you holds everyone back. The text message arrived at exactly 3:47 p.m. while I was sitting in Olympic Stadium in Tokyo, watching Team USA compete in the 4x100-meter relay finals. I was there representing Pinnacle Global Solutions, the international consulting firm where I'd worked as Director of Pacific Rim Operations for 8 years. The message came from my boss, Trevor Manning, CEO of our Seattle-based company. 8 years of building relationships across Asia, securing contracts worth over $150 million, and creating the entire Pacific division from scratch. 8 years of missing my daughter's birthday parties to close deals in Singapore and sacrificing weekends to manage crisis calls from executives in Seoul. 8 years of absolute loyalty to a company that had just discarded me like yesterday's newspaper while I was literally wearing their logo in Olympic Stadium. I stared at the screen for maybe 15 seconds, while the crowd around me roared as the American team took the lead. The second text appeared immediately. "You're terminated. Don't bother coming back to the office." No phone call, no meeting, no explanation. Just the most cowardly way possible to end someone's career while they were 6,000 miles away representing the company at the most prestigious sporting event on Earth. My name is Marcus Rodriguez. I'm 41 years old, and I had just been fired via text message while attending the Tokyo Olympics as Pinnacle Global's official corporate representative. The irony was perfect. Trevor had sent me to Tokyo specifically to network with Asian business leaders and showcase our company's international capabilities. Now he was texting me like a vindictive teenager while I sat surrounded by potential clients worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The woman sitting next to me in the premium corporate seating section noticed my expression. She was Asian, probably mid-40s, wearing an expensive business suit and the kind of confident demeanor that suggested she was used to making important decisions. "Is everything all right?" she asked in accented English that sounded distinctly Japanese. I looked at her more carefully. Something about her face seemed familiar, like I'd seen her in business publications or conference materials. Then recognition hit me like a lightning bolt. Keiko Nakamura, CEO of Sakura Industries, Japan's third-largest technology consulting conglomerate and one of our biggest competitors in the Asian market. We'd never met personally, but I'd been studying her company's strategies for years, trying to understand how they dominated markets where Pinnacle struggled to gain traction. "Just work," I said, slipping my phone back into my pocket. But something in my gut told me this moment was about to become much more significant than a simple firing. Trevor Manning had just made the biggest mistake of his professional life, and he had no idea what was coming. The timing couldn't have been more perfect, or more stupid. I had built Pinnacle's Pacific Rim operations from absolute zero. When I started 8 years ago, we had no Asian clients, no regional presence, and no understanding of how business worked outside North America. Trevor hired me specifically to change that, promising equity stakes and partnership opportunities that never materialized despite my consistent success. My background was in international finance and cross-cultural business development, but I had something that most American consultants lacked: genuine respect for Asian business culture and the patience to build relationships over years rather than expecting instant results. I'd spent the first 2 years learning Japanese and Mandarin, traveling constantly between Tokyo, Seoul, Singapore, and Hong Kong, and slowly building trust with executives who'd been burned by arrogant American companies before. The results spoke for themselves. In 8 years, I'd brought in 67 major clients with combined contract values exceeding $150 million. Our Pacific division now generated 42% of Pinnacle's total revenue. But Trevor Manning was exactly the type of CEO who took credit for every success while distancing himself from any challenge. When Samsung initially rejected our proposal 3 years ago, Trevor publicly blamed my failure to understand Korean business priorities. When I eventually won them back with a culturally sensitive approach that generated $18 million in fees, Trevor told the board it was his strategic oversight that made the difference. The warning signs had been accumulating for months. Trevor stopped including me in quarterly planning sessions. He hired his former fraternity brother Chad Williams as Associate Director of Asian Markets without consulting me. Chad had never worked outside the United States, spoke only English, and had zero understanding of Asian business culture. but he was Trevor's drinking buddy from college.
6 weeks ago, I discovered that Trevor had been intercepting my client emails and taking calls that should have gone through me. When I confronted him about it, he said he was optimizing international communications and that I shouldn't worry about decisions above my clearance level. My wife, Sophia, had been watching the political maneuvering with growing concern. "He's positioning you for something," she'd warned, after I told her about Chad's hiring. "Executives like Trevor don't bring in their college friends unless they're planning to push someone out." I dismissed her concerns. After 8 years of generating massive revenue and building Pinnacle's entire Asian operation from nothing, I thought my position was unassailable. I had relationships with clients that would be impossible to replace quickly. I had institutional knowledge about Asian markets that Trevor desperately needed. I was catastrophically wrong. What I didn't know was that Chad had been systematically working to undermine my client relationships for months. He'd convinced Trevor that I was going native and prioritizing Asian client interests over company profits. He suggested that my extensive travel was excessive and that most international operations could be managed remotely from Seattle. The Olympics trip was supposed to be the crown jewel of my career at Pinnacle. Trevor had personally approved my attendance and networking schedule, praising my work in front of the entire leadership team. "Marcus is going to show those Asian executives what American innovation looks like," he'd said during our last team meeting. Instead, he'd used my absence from the country to execute my termination, while ensuring I couldn't defend myself, gather documents, or speak to clients before word spread through the industry. But Trevor had made one critical miscalculation. He'd fired me while I was sitting in Olympic Stadium, surrounded by every major business leader in Asia Pacific, including several who were about to become very interested in what I had to offer. After the relay finals concluded and Team USA had won gold, I walked to the hospitality lounge reserved for corporate guests. The space was filled with executives from dozens of countries, all networking and discussing business opportunities over premium sake and expensive whiskey. Keiko Nakamura was standing near the window overlooking the stadium, holding a glass of wine and speaking with 2 other executives I recognized from Japanese technology companies. I approached their group with the confidence that comes from having nothing left to lose. "Excuse me, Ms. Nakamura. I'm Marcus Rodriguez from Pinnacle Global Solutions. I believe we have several mutual clients in the Seoul market." She turned to face me, her expression politely professional. "Mr. Rodriguez, yes, I've heard excellent things about your work in South Korea. How are you enjoying the Olympics?" "More than I expected," I replied. "In fact, I just received some news that might be of interest to you." I showed her Trevor's text messages. All 3 executives read them, their expressions growing more serious with each word. In Japanese business culture, firing someone via text message wasn't just unprofessional, it was deeply disrespectful and reflected poorly on the entire organization. "This is very unfortunate timing," Keiko said finally, "especially since we've been following Pinnacle's Pacific operations with great interest." "Those operations will continue," I said carefully, "though perhaps under different management." She exchanged glances with the other executives. "Mr. Rodriguez, when you determine your next professional path, perhaps we could discuss Sakura Industries' expansion plans for the American market. We've been seeking someone with your cultural understanding and client relationships." She handed me her personal business card, not the standard card she gave to vendors, but her private card with her direct phone number and email. "We'll be in Tokyo until Thursday. Would you be available for dinner tomorrow evening?" That evening, I called Sophia from my hotel room and explained what had happened. Her response was immediate and characteristic. "Perfect. Now you can build something for yourself instead of making Trevor Manning rich." By Tuesday morning, I was sitting in Sakura Industries' Tokyo headquarters with Keiko and her senior leadership team. The offer they presented exceeded my wildest expectations. Director of North American Operations, significant equity stake, autonomy to build their American division from scratch, and a salary increase of 40%. Your timing is remarkable, Keiko explained. We've been planning American expansion for 2 years, but we needed someone who understood both markets intimately. What Sakura didn't have was any presence in the United States. What I had was 8 years of relationships with American companies that did business in Asia, plus intimate knowledge of how to bridge cultural gaps that often destroyed international partnerships. Mr. Rodriguez, we're not just offering you a job, she continued. We're offering you the opportunity to build something entirely new. Sakura America would be your division to create and lead. By Wednesday, I was on a plane back to Seattle with a signed employment agreement and a business plan that would revolutionize how Asian companies entered the American market. Trevor thought he could simply inherit my client relationships by firing me and installing Chad Williams. He was about to learn that 8 years of trust and cultural understanding couldn't be transferred via corporate memo. I landed at SeaTac Airport on Thursday morning and drove directly to Pinnacle's offices, not to beg for my job back, but to collect my personal belongings and observe the chaos that was about to unfold. Trevor was waiting in the main conference room with Chad and our HR director, Jennifer Walsh. "Marcus," Trevor said as I entered, his tone artificially cheerful. "How was Tokyo?" "Enlightening," I replied, taking a seat across from him. Jennifer slid a termination packet across the table. Standard severance, non-compete agreements, return of company property. The package was legally adequate, but deliberately insulting. 8 weeks' pay for 8 years of building their most profitable division. "I think you'll find everything in order," Trevor said. "We've decided to restructure the Pacific operations under Chad's leadership. Your services are no longer required." Chad sat there, looking like he'd just inherited a fortune. He was 34 years old, with an MBA from a decent school, but 0 international experience and no understanding of Asian business culture. "What about my client relationships?" I asked. "They're company relationships," Trevor replied. "Chad will be handling all Pacific Rim accounts going forward." I signed the paperwork without argument. Trevor looked surprised by my compliance. "I have to say, Marcus, I expected more resistance from you. This is refreshing." "No point fighting reality," I said, standing up and shaking his hand. "I wish you the best with the Asian markets." What Trevor didn't know was that I'd spent my flight from Tokyo making calls, not to clients yet, that would come later, but to lawyers, accountants, and business advisors. I'd also reviewed my employment agreement carefully and confirmed that my non-compete clause only applied to direct competitors in the Pacific Northwest. It said nothing about working for international companies or starting consulting firms. I cleaned out my desk while Chad watched from across the office, making a point of sitting at my old workstation and loudly discussing Pacific Rim strategy with anyone who would listen. The performance was pathetic, but I let him have his moment. By Monday morning, the real damage began. Lee Jong-soo from Samsung called Pinnacle's main office asking to speak with me about their quarterly implementation review. Jennifer transferred him to Chad, who spent 25 minutes trying to explain why he was now Lee's primary contact. Lee hung up and immediately called my personal cell phone. "Marcus-san, what is happening at your company? This young man understands nothing about our requirements or our business culture." "There have been management changes," I told him. "I can't discuss specifics right now, but I'll be in touch soon." Similar calls came from clients across Asia that week. Tanaka-san from Mitsubishi was particularly direct. "If you're no longer with Pinnacle, we need to discuss our contract immediately. We signed because of your personal commitment to cultural sensitivity." Trevor began to panic by Wednesday. He called my cell phone 12 times, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails about misunderstandings and hasty decisions. Chad had apparently managed to offend 4 clients and completely bungled a video conference with a potential new account in Thailand. The breaking point came Thursday morning when Samsung sent a formal letter requesting termination of their $18 million contract due to material changes in account management and cultural liaison. Trevor showed up at my house that evening. "This is insane, Marcus. You're destroying relationships out of spite." "I'm not destroying anything," I said. "I'm simply not available to save you from Chad's incompetence. What do you want? More money? A better title? Your job back with a raise?" "I want nothing from you, Trevor. You made your choice in Tokyo." He left looking like a man who just realized he'd driven his car off a cliff. But it was too late. The damage was done, and I was just getting started. Friday morning brought a call from Jennifer Walsh. She sounded exhausted. "Marcus, I need to ask you something confidentially. Did you know about Chad's hiring before it was announced?" "Number why?" "Because I've been reviewing the paperwork, and some things don't add up. Trevor backdated Chad's employment to 4 months ago, but his first day was actually 3 weeks ago, and his salary is 30% higher than yours was." This was new information. I'd assumed Chad's hiring was simple nepotism, but Jennifer was suggesting something more calculated. "What else did you find?" "Trevor's been intercepting your client emails for 2 months. He set up a forwarding rule that copied everything to his account. And he's been telling the board that you were planning to quit anyway." The picture became clearer. Trevor hadn't fired me impulsively. He'd been planning this for months, systematically undermining my position while preparing Chad to take over. The Olympics trip wasn't recognition for my achievements. It was a convenient way to get me out of the country while he completed the transition. Jennifer continued. "There's more. Trevor's been negotiating with a consulting firm in Hong Kong about acquiring our Pacific client list. He told them you were unreliable and that the company needed professional management of international relationships." Now I understood the full scope of Trevor's plan. He wasn't just replacing me with his drinking buddy. He was planning to sell the Pacific division to a Hong Kong firm and cash out while taking credit for the business I'd built. "When is this supposed to happen?" "The preliminary agreement was signed last week. Full transfer is scheduled for next month." Trevor had orchestrated this perfectly. Fire me, install Chad as a temporary placeholder, then sell the entire operation to the Hong Kong firm for a massive profit. Chad would probably get a bonus and a recommendation letter, while Trevor would look like a strategic genius who'd successfully monetized the Asian expansion. There was just one problem with his master plan: the clients. Asian business culture values personal relationships and continuity above almost everything else. Lee Jong-soo wasn't going to accept some random Hong Kong consulting firm just because Trevor Manning said it was a good idea. I called Keiko Nakamura in Tokyo. "Nakamura-san, I need to accelerate our timeline. Something significant is happening with Pinnacle's Pacific operations." "What kind of something?" I explained Trevor's plan to sell the division to a Hong Kong firm. Keiko was quiet for a long moment. "That's very interesting, Marcus-san. If he's planning to sell, it means he's already given up on managing those relationships himself, and if the clients are unhappy with the transition, they'll be looking for alternatives." "Exactly. How quickly can Sakura America become operational?" "I can have legal documents prepared by Monday. We've been building our American infrastructure for months. We just needed the right person to lead it." Sunday, I registered Sakura America LLC as a Delaware corporation and opened business banking accounts. By Monday morning, I had a company, a business license, and clients ready to sign contracts worth tens of millions of dollars. Trevor thought he was playing chess, but he just handed me every piece on the board. Tuesday brought chaos to Pinnacle's offices. Samsung's legal team sent contract termination notices. Tanaka-san from Mitsubishi requested immediate return of all proprietary documents. The Thai electronics company canceled their negotiation meeting. Trevor called me at 8 a.m. What the hell are you doing, Marcus? I'm working for Sakura Industries now. My clients chose to follow me. You can't do this. You have a non-compete agreement. I checked with my lawyer. My non-compete applies to direct competitors in the Pacific Northwest. Sakura Industries is a Japanese company expanding into America. The silence lasted almost 40 seconds. You're destroying the Pacific Division. No, Trevor. You destroyed it when you fired me via text message while I was representing Pinnacle at the Olympics. I'm just helping my clients find better service. Wednesday brought more contract terminations. By Thursday, the Hong Kong consulting firm was asking serious questions about the value of acquiring a Pacific division with no clients. Friday morning, Jennifer Walsh called again. Trevor's having a complete breakdown. The Hong Kong deal is collapsing. Chad quit yesterday, and the board is demanding explanations. What kind of explanations? How we lost $127 million in contracted revenue in 1 week. The final blow came exactly 2 weeks after Trevor had fired me in Tokyo. Jennifer called with news that made everything worthwhile. Pinnacle's board just voted Trevor out as CEO. Apparently, losing our entire Asian market was considered a catastrophic failure of leadership. I felt a quiet satisfaction, but no joy. Trevor had brought this on himself through spectacular arrogance and poor judgment. There's more, Jennifer continued. Chad Williams is apparently telling people that you sabotaged the Pacific Division out of spite. Some board members are asking questions about his version of events. I'd expected this. Trevor and Chad needed someone to blame for their failure, and I was the obvious target. Let me guess. They're claiming I stole clients illegally? Exactly. But here's what they don't know. I've been documenting everything. Email intercepts, backdated employment records, the attempted sale to the Hong Kong firm. I'm prepared to testify that Trevor had been planning your termination for months. The irony was perfect. Trevor's methodical planning had created a paper trail that proved his actions were calculated rather than reactive. If he'd simply fired me honestly, he might have retained some clients. Instead, his deception made my departure look completely justified. 6 months later, I was reviewing quarterly reports in my new Seattle office when Sophia called from our home in Bellevue. "You'll never guess who I saw at Costco yesterday," she said. Trevor Manning. He was working at the electronics counter, wearing a name tag and everything. He looked awful. I felt no satisfaction from Trevor's downfall. Destroying someone's career brings no lasting peace, even when they deserve it. But I had learned something valuable about loyalty, timing, and the importance of treating people with basic respect. Sakura America had exceeded all expectations. We'd landed 23 major contracts with American companies seeking Asian partnerships and opened offices in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Phoenix. The Samsung relationship had grown into a multi-company alliance spanning 6 industries. Most importantly, I'd built something that was truly mine. No office politics, no credit stealing, no backstabbing colleagues. Just excellent work for clients who valued competence and cultural understanding. Sophia joined me for a business trip to Tokyo that spring. We took our daughter Emma, who'd never been to Asia, and showed her the Olympic Stadium where her father's real career had begun. For the first time in years, I felt like I was building something permanent rather than just surviving someone else's ambitions. The Tokyo Olympics returned as a 1-year anniversary celebration. This time, I attended as CEO of Sakura America, not as a Pinnacle employee. Keiko and I watched the marathon from the same corporate hospitality suite where we'd first met. "Do you ever regret how things happened?" she asked, as we watched the runners cross the finish line. I thought about Trevor's text message, about the humiliation and uncertainty I'd felt sitting in Olympic Stadium exactly 1 year earlier. Then I looked around at what I'd built, a thriving company, genuine partnerships across 2 continents, and the respect of clients who valued my expertise. I regret that Trevor's poor judgment hurt innocent people at Pinnacle, I said. But I don't regret the opportunity it gave me to build something better. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the catalyst for the best thing that could happen. Trevor's text message had set me free from a company that never truly valued my contributions. His unprofessional, vindictive termination had given me the motivation and moral clarity to build something that was entirely my own. I never thanked him for it, but maybe I should have. After all, without his spectacular lack of judgment and basic human decency, I might still be working for someone else, instead of building a multi-million-dollar international consulting empire. Sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming everything your former boss said you'd never be, then surpassing their wildest dreams while they're reduced to working retail at electronics stores. The Olympics taught me that sometimes you have to lose everything to discover what you're really capable of winning.